Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video. In this one, we're going to talk about how to make currency. A lot of currency. Easiest ways to do it, but I will be briefly touching upon some of the lazy and more effective ways to do it, but I will be mainly focusing on profit crafting because that is the main thing I do when I'm playing this game. It is also one of the main sources of income with my little three-man group that we made about 5,000 to 6,000 X so far in the league, and we're making more. So I'll be touching upon a few things first, and then we're going to dive into profit crafting and the way to achieve it and how to do it. And yeah, let's just dive right into it. There are pros and cons of profit crafting, and there are pros and cons of other type of methods of farming currency. For example, I recently made a casual-friendly farming strategy with Valdo's Rest with some watch turns and whatnot, which has a very small, compared to many other strategies, a very small investment cost, and then you're making currency by running maps. That strategy is generating actual currency orbs as you're playing. So you're actually dropping the currency straight off the bat. And obviously you can get some lucky stuff so that you can sell for more money, but in general, you're making currency straight off the bat by just playing the game. And that is essentially the main source of where you can start the other processes. You have to get an initial budget to start making money. So before we go into how these strategies are applied and how many of us streamers and many other players who play this game a lot makes a gigantic load of currency, it's very simple. We never invest into our characters more than is needed to make the character handle the content we want it to do. Now, to reflect this over to what I do, I make sure that within the first couple of days of a league, I make sure that my character can do boss services of Awakener 8 or Awakener 9 for the community when needed. That's one of the goals I have. So the first few days, I make sure that I gear my character to the point where it can run services in doing that. That doesn't require too much investment to achieve. And then everything else I make is directly invested into making currency. The next step I do is within a week is that I want to have my character be able to run feared services and cortexes and whatnot, because those will be coming in more available throughout about a week into the league. So that's when I invest a little bit more into my character, and everything else I have is directly invested to making more currency. So that's basically the one thing you have to keep in mind when it comes to these things. You need to spend money to make money. And the same thing goes in real life. You don't want your money to sit in your stash and rot and just be affected by stupid inflations and whatnot. You make sure that you invest your money. A good way to describe this is if you want to buy an upgrade for your character that costs 5 Exalteds, and you have 5 Exalteds, the question you need to ask yourself is, can I afford this item? The answer is, in most cases, no, you cannot afford the item. You have enough to pay for it, but you cannot afford it because you'll be broke and you'll be forced to farm for a currency to get that shit back up before you can start investing. The only time that is worth doing is if that item or that upgrade to your character is making your character able to farm for currency or make currency better than it could without it. Then it can be worth it. So, taking that initial league start scenario aside, where you invest in currency and you just do maps, we just play the game to make currency at that point. It's not much. You got to get lucky to get big ticket items, but you just make a little bit of currency every day. Once you've reached the point where you can start spending this currency as investments to make more currency, there's a lot of different ways to do this. The first and foremost, which is the best one in my opinion for casual players, is the strategies that is netting you actual direct currency, such as the farming strategy video I have. I'll link it in the descriptions, where you actually generate currency as drops for you to make money. The other aspects is flipping and profit crafting. And then there's service runs as well, but I won't touch on that too much in this video. So flipping, it can be done by anyone. Profit crafting can be done by anyone, both of which requires knowledge and experience and understanding of what the hell you're doing. The downside of those two strategies is that both of them requires you to be online to actually be readily available to trade. That means that the more hours you spend online, even if you're not playing the game, but just being online allows you to do more currency or get more currency out of those two strategies because you are available on the market. People will contact you to buy or sell the items, and therefore you can make more currency the more hours you put into the game. That's the downside of those two. So if you're someone who only plays a couple of hours a day or even less than that, you might not want to do that, but you also will be in a position where you're not going to be making thousands of X every league. That's just the way it is. You have to play the game to make money. That's sadly the case, and that goes for any game in the world. So taking this information and moving it into describing what flipping is, I will simply just go into the trade window, and I'll take one example. The flipping, I've explained this several times in different kind of ways, but the best way to describe it is comparing it to real life situations. In real life, you see many stores saying buy 2, you get 1 for free. You get a discount for buying multiple items. Instead of buying 1 pair of shoes, you can get 2 pair of shoes that you're paying for, but you get a 3rd pair for free, right? And I know I've said this in the past where, if somebody wants to buy 1,000 sex dolls, they'll contact a bunch of companies, and then, they will give the person an offer, and then that person will take the best or cheapest option, right? That doesn't work in the games like this, because the way trading works in Path of Exile is that a lot of people like myself who spends a lot of currency crafting, I never buy them one by one. I buy them in bulk. So, for example, I recently crafted a helmet that we finished, and the way we did it was using glyphic fossils. So I'll take an example on showing you how much a glyphic fossil costs if you buy them one by one. 22, 24, 25, seems to be pretty reliably at 25 up to 26 chaos each. Very, very simple. If you click on the About tab, you can very easily see how to put up a buy order. And the way to put up a buy order, you just click that little About button, and you can just read the descriptions here. If you put up a buy order for these, which people have, you see that people are trying to buy them for 25C, which is basically what they're selling for. So that means that instead of buying them, which they're most likely doing as well, other people will actually go to this person and sell it to them. So he doesn't even have to contact them. So why is this good? And how is this flipping? Once you've accumulated a large amount of these fossils, as an example, you can do this with plenty of things: essences, fossils, generic crafting materials, regrets, annulment orbs, wall orbs, all of these things works to some degree. Some are more profitable than others. So what this means is that if you're paying an average of 25 chaos each, and the current exalt ratio is about 150, and divide that by 25, that means that for every exalted invested into these glyphic fossils, you're paying for 6 of them. So each exalted is worth 6 fossils. Now, when you're selling these, you want to sell them for more. And the way you sell them for more is showing people that, hey, I have a shitload of these, but for you to buy them from me, I'm going to charge more currency, because you don't have to trade 20 people to get 20 of these fossils. You can buy them all from me, but they're going to cost you more currency. And that's how flipping works in this game. So if we take 20 as an example for chaos, they're going for 30 chaos instead to buy these. Now, when we bought these up, we bought all of this, and we even bought the ones for 60 because there wasn't that many people with the glyphic fossils. Now, this is one example of many. And then if you look at exalted prices on these things, you can see that they're going for 1 exalted for 3, which is about 60 chaos each, right? This means that you can spend 1 exalted currency buying glyphic fossils. That's going to give you 3 glyphic fossils per exalted, and then you sell them for twice that much currency. And they do sell. Trust me, I bought at least 500 of these myself just over the last couple of days. They do sell. So that's how you flip. And this is one example. You can do this with any essences. You can do this with any fossils, for example. Just look into the market and look at the single price buying versus the bulk selling prices. And if the margin is good enough for your time, go for it. That's how you flip to make currency. I will, however, be focusing on profit crafting in this video, because that's how I made most of my currency. Now, profit crafting is very, very different. I will have links in the descriptions below, which goes through the entire process of learning how to craft basic 101 crafting guide. I have written crafting guides for those of you who prefer that. All of that is linked in the descriptions below, so do check it out. And once you've learned how to craft and all the ins and outs of how to approach the crafting aspect of the game, then you need to find out what to craft. And that is a common question I get very often when I'm streaming, because I make a lot of currency doing this. And the first thing I have to say is, if I say craft X item for profit, that item will be overcrafted by everyone and it will no longer be profitable. So I can't tell you craft this or that, because 2 hours later, people's going to start messaging me saying, hey, this is no longer profitable because everyone's crafting it. So instead, I'm going to show you how I approach the profit crafting aspects and what I do to go through these steps. So basically, I'm going to take how to find what to craft last. You will have to look at a page, website like Craft of Exile, and you'll have to look at the average craft costs of what to do how much it's going to cost you to achieve certain modifiers on items, and look at the average craft cost. And then I take that amount of currency and I multiply that with 20 to 30% to make up for situations where I might be unlucky, where I spend more than the average amount of crafting it. Then I compare that amount of currency to the worst sellable outcome. I'm going to take one example of this, and that is a convoking wand. I'm pretty sure they're not very profitable to do at all right now. A convoking wand with level of all minion skills and spell skills. And we know that this is the best way to do with fossils, but if you don't know the best method, just go through all of these things and see which one is the cheapest to do. The good thing with Craft of Exile is that you can just click fossils and just take them side by side, and then you click compute best selection. And it's going to tell me to use a 4-socket resonator with metallic, jagged, shuddering, and corroded fossils. We've done this multiple times. It's been a very profitable craft. Last league, I crafted over 400 ones like this, and each one gave us about 15 to 20x profit. So there's a lot of currency to be made in these things. And the current state of the market, I'm pretty sure they're not profitable, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So, corroded, jagged, metallic, shuddering fossil, it's going to tell me that it's a 1 in 12. There's an average craft cost of almost 800 chaos. So what I would do is I would take this and multiply that with 30 to 40, well, 20 to 30%. So I'd take 800 chaos, I always round it up, and I'll multiply that with 20 to 30%, and then I'll have an average crafting cost. Then I would go to the market and I would check how much are these actually going for. So if you look at race minion spell skills and minion, and I look for a wand like this, I can see that they are with blocked suffixes, which we know we need a open suffix for a trigger craft, which is going to cost you a reforged key prefix, which is, I think, is going for about 100 chaos on TFT. I'm not sure. So I have to keep that in mind as well to open up that bench craft. So about 2.5x. Now we know that 2.5x is 375 chaos. So looking at this number, I can now tell you right now that it is not worth bothering crafting these ones. It's not profitable because the average craft cost, which would be with my calculation a little bit over 1,000 chaos, can be worth 2.5x, and then you have to open up the suffix. And if you open up the suffix, when you use the skill, there we go, you can see that they're going for 3.5x, which is basically what I said they're going for by 1x. So the worst sellable outcome would be just hitting those numbers and having no need or no use of the prefix modifier, and you have the trigger, and they're going to go for 3.4, 4 exalteds, and 4 exalteds is not even covering the craft cost. So in this case, I can verify that crafting these ones in that way, not going with a super high budget with the fracturing and those strategies, just this process is not worth doing for profit. But this is how I can verify what the average craft cost is, and I compare that to the worst sellable outcome, and I can now tell and say that I'm not going to craft this because it's not going to generate any currency for me. Other examples would be if we're looking at a craft cost where the item that I'm crafting has a, say that the average craft cost of an item is 10 exalteds, and I add 30% to that. That means the average craft cost of an item is 13 exalteds. And the worst sellable outcome, basically I just hit the mods that I'm expecting and nothing else is good on the item, that would be sellable for, say, 20x. What I then do is I take the margin between those two numbers. In this example would be 13x cost averagely, and the worst sellable outcome is selling for at least 20x. That's a 7 exalted margin. Then that would be something I can craft for profit. Now, another thing to think about is sometimes you can be unlucky. The one, for example, lastly, I crafted about 400 of these, and sometimes I got unlucky. It says 1 in 12, as you can see here, 1 in 12. I had ones that took 30 crafts. That can happen. I also had ones that hit in the first, second, or third try as well, which is very lucky. And that's just the point of it. If you do it a profit craft, you need to be ready to craft more than just one. You don't profit craft one item. You craft multiple of them, assuming they will sell, which I'll tackle in a sec, to make sure that you fill up as much as possible. And the more you craft, the more money you'll make in the long run, because averagely, you're going to spend less than they're selling for, as long as that market doesn't get screwed over, which is why we don't flood the market by crafting 50 of that immediately. We craft 1, 2, maybe 3, and then whenever 1 or 2 sells, then we craft 1 or 2 new ones and rinse, repeat the process. That's how we make a lot of currency. So once you have that information, you need to keep track of the market and all these things, and look at the average craft cost versus the worst sellable outcome. And also another note about that is, when you craft a lot of these things, we are currently comparing the average craft cost and then adding currency to it. We're also comparing that to the worst sellable outcome. When you're crafting as many as you should be doing to making currency doing this, since you're not just gonna craft one, you craft multiple of these things, there's always the lucky chance where, oh, I ended up with something that's worth 2, 3, 4 times as much as the worst sellable outcome. Then suddenly you've made a lot of currency because you got lucky. But the more you craft something, the higher the chance of you ending up with a really good outcome becomes, right? So that's how we make currency. Find something you can craft that will always net you currency, and eventually you're going to get something big that's going to net you even more currency. And that's how you make a lot of easy decisions when it comes to making currency profit crafting. So to tackle the problem of how do I find good items to craft, there are three different things to think about with this. First one is understanding the flow of the game. And this is where experience with the game comes in, as well as understanding how the league mechanic works and whatnot. So basically, we know, for example, that about a week into a league, you're going to see a lot more people playing aura bots. Because people are playing aura bots, that means gear for aura bot characters becomes a profitable craft to do very early on. And then it kind of goes down a couple of weeks later where it's not really that profitable. That is a flow on the market that keeps going up and down and has been having that same procedure or same time span for many years now. That's just one item, or not just one item. Mostly I craft shields for that, but that's one way of approaching it. The other approach is looking at what is actually meta. What are most people playing during the league start? What are most people playing at the time of you wanting to do a profit craft? And then look at the items that are similar between these people. And how do you do this? Well, there's two different solutions. One, I can't believe I'm going to show you Reddit on this video, but let's see how long we're surviving here. If there's a popular build that explodes and gets very high friction, a lot of attention on Reddit, for example, similar to how the Hateforge build in the current league, it skyrocketed. They went from like nothing to being selling for like 100x per pair. A lot of people flipped those as well. That is one way of keeping track of items that can be profitable, because once the hype dies down, or most people are already done with the build or have the gear for the build, and you know the market gets kind of saturated and more people craft for them, and then they stop crafting because it's not really worth it anymore. So Reddit is a good source of those spiky situations where a popular build becomes really popular. Then you can craft items for that build specifically, and then just stop crafting for it before the market gets saturated. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, which is my favorite one, is PoE Ninja. PoE.Ninja, actually. You go to builds, and you can see that currently most people, 15% of all the players above 97 is playing Cyclone. Now, if you look at this, this is a chaos damage dealing with Paradoxica, Cyclone, actually dealing proper damage with Cyclone. And you can just click the next character, and we see that this is a Cost Priest Malice cast on crit build. And then if you want to be narrowing down your search a bit, you can do, for example, if you can look at the Cost Priest Malice by including that in the search. And then we can look at the fact that these are the people that are playing with Cost Priest Malice. And we can see that if I click next, why can't I click next character? There we go. That's a shield with Chevron's low life. Sorcerer boots, dual wielding, sorcerer boots, boots are rare, helmets rare, boots are rare, gloves. So it looks like some people are using the Kalissa's Grace, but most people are either using a rare helmet or Indigan, but almost everyone is using a rare pair of boots. So this is an example of this. So I'll be then looking at these pair of boots and see that these boots are pretty trash. There's nothing special about them. I look at these, there's Tailwind. I can go forward a couple pages and we'll take a look at another character. There's Tailwind and Onslaught on those. And I go further on. This is the Omegan. These have Tailwind and Elusive. I go to the next one and I see that they have nothing special actually. Next one again is the Omegan. Next one here, nothing special. So you kind of what you're looking for is finding that sweet spot of a similar item between the different kind of builds. So in this case, most of the builds that I saw here were using a Tailwind Elusive pair of boots. So because most of these are using Tailwind Elusive, then I can actually look at the market and look at the average craft cost of what is a Tailwind Elusive pair of boots with movement speed going to cost me. How do I craft it? By looking through Craft of Exile. What's the cost of crafting it? And then look at that comparing to the market's average worst sellable outcome. And that's how you find profit crafts. This is just one example of many. And all you have to do is just utilize builds in PoE.Ninja to find out what you want to craft and how you want to craft it. Same thing goes for like Spectre gear. We know that most people are using big dick helmets. They're using +2 Spectre boots and whatnot, proper shields. I have plenty of guys for them when it comes to Spectre builds myself, but it's like, this is how you find what to craft. And no one can tell you what to craft. You have to find these yourself, because if somebody tells you and he tells everyone, then everyone's going to craft it and it will no longer be profitable. That's just a quick TLDR. I know the video got a little bit longer than expected. I hope you guys had use of this video. I will be consistently and continuously posting more crafting guides in the link description to my hub video. Sorry, my hub link in the descriptions below, so you guys can learn how to craft. And there's going to be a lot of crafting videos on specific items, which you can also utilize and check if they're profitable, which they are for the most part in the early stage of a league. That's it. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe, keep rocking.